Choice Maternity Hospital is a well-known healthcare facility, and it's owned by Dr. Linda, who is an expert in child delivery. Just like any other hospital, there are unfortunate instances where a mother may lose her child during childbirth, while others have successful deliveries. What makes this hospital popular is its low hospital fee, making it affordable for both the rich and the poor. It was late in the night, around 12 o'clock, when Paul, asleep in his bed, was suddenly awoken by the cries of his pregnant wife, Peace. She wouldn't stop patting him, desperately trying to arouse him from his sleep. For 9 long years, Peace had endured being labeled a barren woman, enduring the harsh words and mockery of her mother-in-law and those of her neighbors who doubted her. But now, her news of pregnancy had silenced the gossipers once and for all. Paul was used to Peace's nighttime cries for attention, whether it be to demand food or requests for a dance or song to comfort the unborn baby. However, on this particular night, things felt different. Peace appeared to be in labor, and Paul, confused and unsure of what to do, sat by her side as she signaled for him to rub her back, which he did. "The child is coming. Take me to the hospital," Peace managed to say amidst the pain. Without hesitation, Paul helped her up, grabbed the keys to his taxi, and guided her outside. Quickly, he opened the taxi door and carefully assisted Peace inside before taking the driver's seat and setting off in search of the nearest hospital. Having driven around the city searching for any open hospital that night, Paul couldn't find any. He was completely tired, and the repeated screaming of his pregnant wife at the back seat of his taxi further weakened him. "Maybe I should drive her home, knock at the door of any woman in the compound to help me deliver her," Paul concluded. But just as he was about heading home, he spotted a hospital still opened at such a late hour. "Thank goodness. Finally, I have seen one. But this hospital is quite luxurious. Can I afford the fee?" Paul thought to himself, contemplating whether to drive inside or go home. But Peace's scream this time made him honk at the hospital's gate. As the gate was opened for him, he drove in, leading Peace inside. "Hello, sir," a voice called out from behind, causing Paul to turn around. He was met with the sight of a female doctor, Dr. Linda, and a nurse standing there with a stretcher. "Is she in labor?" Dr. Linda inquired, to which Paul simply nodded in response. They then carefully placed Peace onto the stretcher, with Dr. Linda and the nurse quickly wheeling her inside the ward. "I'm sorry, sir, but you can't accompany her inside the ward. You will be informed when your wife delivers," Dr. Linda instructed as she closed the door to the hospital ward. Paul could only watch helplessly as they disappeared from view. A few minutes later, the female nurse who had entered the room with Dr. Linda came out, and Paul, who had been anxiously pacing the hospital halls, hurried to meet her. "Please, nurse, how is my wife and baby?" Paul inquired, his concern evident. "I'm sorry, Mr. Paul, but your wife has not given birth yet. Dr. Linda advised you to go home and gather some clothes for her and the baby, instead of waiting here," the nurse informed him. Despite his worries at leaving his wife alone in the hospital, Paul knew he had to follow the doctor's instructions. He quickly made his way to his taxi and headed back home to collect the necessary items. Dr. Linda left the hospital ward and inquired if Paul had left, receiving a nod from the nurse. "It's time to act. Come with me, let's go inside and deliver her," Dr. Linda said as they entered the ward. Shortly after, Peace gave birth to a healthy baby boy, and upon hearing his cries, she fainted from tiredness. "We have been waiting for this for days, with most deliveries being girls. This completes our order. Do you know what needs to be done now?" Dr. Linda asked the nurse. The nurse understood perfectly as she fetched a lifeless baby boy and placed him beside the sleeping Peace. Then they both left the ward with the newborn baby boy. Peace woke up feeling a bit tired, yet filled with joy as she held her newborn baby in her arms. "Come here, my precious child," Peace whispered, lifting the baby up, only to realize he wasn't moving. But I heard his cry before I fell unconscious. What happened all of a sudden? This can't be. Why is my situation different? After 8 years of childlessness, enduring insults, tears staining my pillow every night, and this? Why did I conceive only to give birth to a lifeless baby? Peace lamented, tears streaming down her face. Frantically looking around the room for Paul, Peace left the hospital ward with tear-filled eyes, going through the hospital in search of her husband. I have to go soon. When that man arrives, please let him know that he has lost his child. Mr. Badmus mentioned he needed 15 boys, and now with this newborn baby, the order is complete. I must leave tonight to deliver the baby. I have already informed him, and he will be expecting me at our usual meeting place. Dr. Linda said to the nurse, but as she turned to put the baby in a travel bag, she was startled to see Peace standing at the door of her office. It was obvious that she had overheard their conversation. Peace was shocked by what she heard and quickly rushed into Dr. Linda's office, snatching her child from her arms. Is this what goes on here? Selling innocent babies? I will ensure that everyone knows about the atrocities happening in this so-called hospital, Peace exclaimed, glaring at Dr. Linda before storming out of the office. Dr. Linda was gripped with fear at the thought of being exposed. She knew she had to act quickly or risk her hard-earned reputation being destroyed. In a panic, she signaled to the nurse to pass her a syringe, which the nurse did promptly as Dr. Linda rushed after Peace, pretending to plead for forgiveness. It's the devil's work, I swear. Please forgive me. Please, don't tell anyone about this, Dr. Linda begged, trying to catch up with Peace. Peace, exhausted from her recent delivery, couldn't run as fast, allowing Dr. Linda to catch up with her. Get out of my way or you'll regret it, Peace warned Dr. Linda, who obeyed but headed towards the door and shutting it behind. I don't think you understand who you're dealing with, ma'am. I'm not someone to be played with. You can try to expose me all you want, but only if you manage to leave this place alive, Dr. Linda said, holding the syringe tightly and advancing towards Peace. Peace considered fleeing through another door in the hospital, but the nurse had already blocked that path. Feeling helpless and unsure of what to do next, Peace dropped to her knees between Dr. Linda and the nurse, pleading for them to spare her and her child. Please, I beg you. Please don't harm me. I've waited so long for this child. Please, Peace begged, tears streaming down her face. Paul was rushing to get to the hospital when he suddenly realized that his car had run out of fuel. Knowing that there were no gas stations open at that late hour, he gathered up all the things he had packed: clothes, tea, and milk, and decided to continue on foot. Leaving his car behind, he trekked to the hospital, eager to reach his destination. The nurse moved in closely, attempting to snatch the baby from Peace's hand, but she adamantly held on, clutching her child tightly. A tense struggle ensued as they both dragged the baby, until suddenly, Dr. Linda intervened. Dr. Linda forcefully injected the syringe into Peace's neck multiple times, causing her to fall and close her eyes for the last time. Take the baby and put him in that travel bag. I'll move her to the hospital ward to avoid suspicion, Dr. Linda instructed, dragging Peace's dead body onto the hospital bed. If only you hadn't been so stubborn, none of this would have come to pass. Unfortunately, your son will soon follow you, Dr. Linda said before quickly exiting the hospital ward. Dr. Linda entered her office, bringing out up to 10 travel bags as she carefully placed them in the boot of her car. Just as she was about to close the boot, Paul hurried into the hospital. Doctor, how is my wife? Has she given birth yet? Paul asked anxiously. However, instead of answering, Dr. Linda embraced him, offering a comforting pat on the back before delivering the heartbreaking news of his wife and child's passing. Please try to stay strong. Unfortunately, both your wife and the baby did not make it. She passed away shortly after giving birth to a stillborn baby, Dr. Linda gently informed Paul as he rushed back into the hospital. I have to leave here quickly, Dr. Linda stated before driving away from the hospital. Inside of the hospital ward, Paul laid beside Peace, screaming onto her. Peace, this was never the plan. Why did you have to leave so suddenly? Where do I even begin without you by my side? My life feels empty and meaningless without you here. Please, Peace, please wake up. I need you more than ever. Paul's voice cracked with emotion as tears flowed down his cheeks. Dr. Linda was on her way to meet Badmus when she noticed police officers standing by the road. Oh, goodness. Why are they still out here? She muttered as she drove closer. As she approached the officers, they signaled for her to stop. Hey, lady. What are you doing out at this late hour? One of the officers questioned Dr. Linda, who knew she had to mask her fears so they wouldn't suspect anything. There was an emergency at the hospital. I had to be there to help save a life, Dr. Linda explained, handing some cash to the officers, who praised her and allowed her to pass. With a smile, Dr. Linda was relieved that they wouldn't be a further obstacle in her mission to deliver to Badmus. Stopping next to a bush, Dr. Linda came down from her car and went to the boot, opening it. She took down the travel bags and picked up 2 of them. As she was about to turn, she was startled to see Peace standing in front of her, sending a shiver down her spine. Filled with fear, Dr. Linda let go of the bag she was holding. Give me my child, give my child to me. I need my child, Peace's voice screamed at Dr. Linda, who trembled in fear upon seeing Peace's ghost in the late hour, alone beside the bush. Please, don't harm me. I will give you your child, Dr. Linda said, searching the travel bags desperately, trying to locate where she had placed Peace's newborn baby. Just as she was about to open the travel bag containing the baby, Badmus came out from the bush, standing quietly behind Peace's ghost. With the walking stick Badmus was holding, he used it and touched Peace's ghost, which made it disappear. Dr. Linda was shocked seeing this, and was relieved that this angry ghost didn't manage to cause harm to her. Badmus was a well-known politician in the state and was Dr. Linda's regular customer. They had been in this business for over 7 years now, with Dr. Linda making newborn babies available anytime Badmus needed them. These children were used for 2 purposes, either used by Badmus for money ritual, which always helped in his campaign, or sacrificed to the great altar of Apomaha, the god with 7 eyes. This ensured that Badmus wins any election he contests for. That particular spot was their meeting place anytime Dr. Linda brought the order, and Badmus would carry them inside the bush, though Dr. Linda didn't know where he was keeping them. When I saw her standing there with no shadow, I knew she wasn't human. Who is she? Badmus asked Dr. Linda, who narrated all that happened to her. Knowing that the bags were too many and Peace's ghost might come back again to carry them, Badmus instructed Peace to get into the car as he drove deep into the bush. Where are we going? Peace asked Badmus, who gave a mischievous smile. A person who knows no road should stay calm while being led to the road. When we get there, you will know, Badmus replied, as if increasing the speed of the car. As they reached a small hut in the bush, Badmus asked Dr. Linda to step down from the car, which she did. Carry the bags inside the hut, Badmus added, as Dr. Linda obeyed without uttering any word. As she stepped inside the hut, an old man's voice screamed at her. Who dared to enter Apomaha's shrine with footwears, the native doctor said, with Dr. Linda removing her slippers immediately. Forgive her, Apomaha. She came with me, and she doesn't know the rules yet. Please, be merciful, Badmus pleaded on behalf of Dr. Linda, as the native doctor instructed both of them to come inside. The babies are ready for the sacrifice, Apomaha, but we have a major issue, Badmus informed the native doctor. By the time you arrived, the gods had already revealed to me what had transpired. There is an angry mother's ghost following this woman sitting here, the native doctor said, pointing at the surprised Dr. Linda, who was shocked at how he knew. The last child you used to complete this order was a mother's long-awaited blessing from her god. This woman's only wish was to experience motherhood. She wanted to show the world that she was not cursed or barren, but you shattered that dream when you took her life. She will not rest until she has her child back, and now that this child has entered this great altar, there is no going back. While Badness may have temporarily driven her away with the powerful staff, she will return soon. This sacrifice will not take place tonight, or ever, unless that woman is laid to rest. You must ensure she is buried within the next 7 days, and the sand from her grave is brought here to bind her spirit forever. Once this is done, you will no longer have to face her ghost, the native doctor explained. But how can we do that when her ghost is following me? Dr. Linda asked, fear creeping into her voice. The native doctor handed her a staff to hold, which she could use to cast away Peace's ghost whenever it appeared. Badness and Dr. Linda then left the hut, getting into the car to drive back to her hospital, hoping to see Paul, Peace's husband. Upon arriving at the hospital, Dr. Linda quickly exited the car and hurried inside. Where is Mr. Paul? Dr. Linda inquired of the nurse, who informed her that he had left with his wife's corpse and the dead baby a while ago. Why are you asking, doctor? Is everything all right? The nurse asked Dr. Linda. No, everything is fine. Please bring me his medical files, Dr. Linda instructed. As the nurse retrieved the files, Dr. Linda searched through them and found his home address. She then went outside to meet Badness, and they both agreed to visit Mr. Paul the following day. In Paul's home, he sat surrounded by people offering their condolences for his recent loss. Be strong, Paul. Things will get better, one neighbor reassured him, giving him a comforting pat on the back. Suddenly, a car pulled up with Dr. Linda and Badness stepping out, catching everyone's attention due to the luxurious car. Good morning, Mr. Paul, greeted Dr. Linda, whom Paul recalled as the doctor from the previous night. We would like to speak with you privately, she added, prompting Paul to join them in the car. This one, a luxurious car, is visiting him. Are you sure that this Paul hasn't done anything fishy? Megan, one of Paul's neighbors, said, with the rest of his neighbors gossiping and going back to their different rooms. Dr. Linda is like a sister to me. She told me about your loss and I want to help. I'll cover the funeral expenses and provide financial assistance to you, Badness offered to Paul, who was grateful for the support. When do you plan to bury her? Dr. Linda inquired. In a month's time, Paul replied, but Badness and Dr. Linda knew that wasn't ideal given the problem at hand. She needs to rest peacefully as soon as possible. We'll take care of everything. In 7 days, she will be laid to rest, Badness decided, with Paul agreeing, as he couldn't afford the burial on his own. Having gotten Paul's consent, Dr. Linda and Badness left, excited about the outcome. As Paul wearily made his way to his room, seeking rest after a night filled with tears and grief, he suddenly felt a gentle touch on his shoulder. Startled, he turned around to see who it was that had touched him. Who do you think touched Paul? Do you think Paul will truly agree to bury his wife in the next 7 days? Watch out for part 2. Thank you for watching this video. Please don't forget to like, subscribe and comment what you think about this story. Bye for now.